what I would like to do is, like, I will give you a kind of a general idea of how my concept of piano playing is about, and then maybe you can have example of certain things, problems of how to practice certain things, how to, any question that you would have, I'm supposed to know and to give you an answer. So here we have the piano. So I think we all know that, I mean, from everyone that I heard in the room, everybody has fingers and knows what to do with the finger. The idea for me is that to sit at the piano, actually, we have to be much more aware of a lot of things. And the first thing is that I think we all begin thinking that the piano is the fingers go down, up and down, and up and down, okay? But if you, in this century, the piano is extremely wide, right? So the main thing that I find that is not really, we don't think about it enough, and we don't use it when we play, is we are not going so much up and down with our fingers. We are constantly going left and right. Okay? The problem, one of the problem with the piano, at least that I find, is that the piano doesn't move. So you cannot, like a string player or a wind player or eventually a singer, you cannot really, you cannot adapt your position. I mean, the piano doesn't adapt to you. It's there, and it will stay there forever, right? So the whole concept that I have about piano playing is that we have physically to adapt. There are certain basic things that we can do in order to learn to move easily on the keyboard. So what I'm going to talk to you today is not really about music, right? So my concept about playing the piano is a tool to make music more easily. Music is for me also very much horizontal, but with the piano, the fact that it's very wide, and it will always be the problem of a pianist is to find a balance between horizontal versus vertical. Okay, the piano won't play unless your finger goes vertically in the key, but then after that, what happens? Somewhere the piano is not an horizontal instrument. I mean, it's horizontal physically, it's horizontal, but it's a vertical. You have when you push the finger in the key, what happens is the hammer hits the string and then says goodbye, and then you have the string ringing by itself. So what I'm gonna, the whole concept for me is, what do we do in between the notes so that we can actually create a phrase? The same way the note for me are like syllables of a language. So we learn to play, we learn to speak by syllables. We all learn to play the piano or make music by syllable, one note at a time, right? Well, you are all much further than that. So you already learned to put a syllable with 2 other or 3 other syllables to create words, and then you have to learn now, I think for a lot of the things that I heard from you the other day, make phrases, okay? So there's not much difference as the piano, as I'm telling you, the piano is a tool. It's very important for me to say that you're not going to, when I say I don't talk about music, I will talk about music as far as the comparison to a language. But the idea is that the music making, the decision of playing phrases, of connecting syllables to one another, for me has to begin with the piano, but it's not the end, right? So sometimes for a while I gave seminars for a week, and I talked for 2.5, maybe 4 hours a day, 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon. And the result of this explanation from A to Z to piano playing, I realized that, first of all, people left the seminar like zombies, because it's much too much information that anybody can actually. For me, it's easy because I've been thinking and very, very aware of this while I'm teaching, but also for myself as a player. But also, what happened is that it can sound extremely dry. So you have to understand that the information that I'm giving you is to learn to move on the keyboard. Then this is a tool to actually do what we want to do, which is create music. Okay, so that it's not a goal in itself. So if somebody does exactly the movement that I'm saying and not hearing music, not feeling music, it's not going to work. I mean, nothing is going to happen. So all this is a goal. Is a tool. So the vertical versus horizontal. Okay, so we have fingers going in. And then we have, how are we going to move the fingers out here, in there, like this, like that. The idea for me is that we are not really playing the piano with our fingers. The fingers are like the mouth of a singer. Okay, so I think your fingers are your voice. So that the same way a singer has to work physically, has to work with the jaw, with the tongue, with the teeth, right? When you see singers that are professional teeth, they have perfect teeth. They were not born with it. They were helped to get perfect teeth. So this is the thing that the last few years I became very aware, is that there are muscular things that we should know as pianists that needs to be developed, just like a singer would work with their jaw, the articulation of even the way I'm talking right now. I articulate from here, but I have the main thing that as pianists we also have to not to from here but here. So this is something that I will talk about, certain exercises that will reinforce the muscles in your hands, in the palm of your hand. Anybody knows here where the muscles of your fingers are? That's right. So the muscles are not here. From here to here, these are tendons, right? And actually, we have tendons, and then that becomes muscles, right? So the fingers are actually, the action on the piano is very far from the muscles that we need to contract. You create sound, finally, by the speed, and you control the sound by the speed and the depth of the contraction of your muscles, right? So when I go down in the key, I actually contract my muscles. The sound, if I want to create different sound, I will change. So this is going to be, or if I do this, this will be the final realization comes from here. Now the muscles here react from everything that you have in your body. So another thing that you probably will hear things that you never heard before, and also things that may totally be the opposite of what you heard in order to practice or things like this. Because, for example, I think that the idea of practicing scales, someone practicing scales is someone who, first of all, scales should be for me something that I learn as a color, so that we learn all the key signatures, so that just like children, I believe that we should think we have a name for a color. For example, with young kids, we learn orange, the color orange. There's a word for it, right? A note, there is a name for it, but doesn't really mean it. It doesn't mean anything. So yes, if I can say this is C. Well, for me, the scale of C major, right? It's a color. If you have, right? So the scale for me is probably one of the most difficult thing to play on the keyboard, because you have what I call the shift. You have to go from the third finger to the thumb, or you have to go from the thumb to the fourth finger or to the third finger. These are the problem in a scale are, of course, we can, I think at this point, probably all of you can play a scale, but the idea of what is in the scale, so that you learn actually, most of the time we learn to play scales slowly. Well, when you play a scale slowly, you can pass what people call pass the thumb underneath. When you play a scale fast, you cannot do the same movement because you don't have time. So we'll have a lot of irregularity. So the first thing for me is that things that, and a lot of what I'm going to tell you now has to do with a certain speed of playing, so that you are actually staying in relation with the keyboard, right? So I was telling you that the keyboard is wide, and that we have to move left and right. How do we move our arm left and right? What muscles of our body are we supposed to back? Yes, and what else? Exactly. So when you are at the piano, one of the main things that helps a lot is to actually feel that you are playing from here. Again, this is something that female have less of an easy time, or they have to worry more about left and right, because we are slimmer here, right? So I will always remember that I saw Evelyne Brancart a while ago, and it was in Aspen, and I was sitting very somehow far away, and the chair wasn't where he wanted to in relation to his piano. So he took the piano like this, and he moved it toward himself. And so, of course, somebody who has the wideness here doesn't have to worry much about going here or going there. So for these people, the width of the instrument is not much of a problem. So you will see the many pianists that are actually functioning as pianists. A lot of them have actually certain things that, or using their body a certain way, so that when they move, you don't have the feeling of anything ever difficult, because they have in their body a lot of them actually, I think, have it naturally. One of the main thing is the thumb, right? The thumb, I think, is the major problem for pianists. It's a wonderful, I mean, I love my thumbs. I think they're wonderful fingers, but you have to have them. If you see most pianists that are good pianists, they have the thumb with the bone here out. That means that the form of their hand, they can really have the tip of the hand as a platform. The palm of the hand is a platform, and so the knuckles that they have here is the same for the thumb. So the thumb is the only problem with the thumb is that it's shorter. But so if you work in your hand, like I said, that the singer work with the mouse. I mean, they have to learn to articulate here, right? one of the things, first thing, instead of doing scales for me, is to work on these muscles that we have, not the muscles of the fingers. Everybody has enough strength to go down the key. This is not the problem. But the problem is that a lot of people, first of all, the finger, which is, that has three articulation, or two if you want, most of it, when people play, they collapse here. So when you collapse the what people call bridge or support, you don't, whatever you want to move from here, or you want to connect from the other part of the singer, which for me is also extremely important, is the breathing, so the core of the body, right? So if this collapses, there is no way how the sound, whatever you create, will get to the keyboard, because it gets lost, and so you're going to get tension. Tension is, again, a word that people say, oh, no tension, you have to be relaxed. I'm sorry, but if we need tension. I mean, piano, making music, it's like life. If you want to be relaxed, you stay in your bed, and you don't practice, and you don't play the piano, and you don't read, you don't do anything. So the tension is actually something that we need. The main problem is the main issue is to have the tension at the right places, right? So that if we drop the hand like this, and you will see most of and certainly the guy we're going to see tonight, you will, I'm sure, I don't remember exactly his hand, but you're going to see that the fingers are under the palm of the hand. And so to begin with, which for me before, I would give exercises to actually isolate the muscles that are here, that you have. It's actually between the fingers, and it's they are going over the articulation. That's why you have, if you let your hand like this, not from the wrist, from just here. So this is what I call the teeth of the pianist, right? So we want this regular. If I don't practice, which these days I'm not practicing that much, these two bones are going to be a little bit lower. That means that the muscles under fourth and fifth, or between here and here, and I don't have here with me but you can look in an anatomy book, and you will see that you have tendons, right, that are becoming muscles here, and in between you have, in the front and in the back of the hand, you have muscles. So the muscles, when they are stronger, they will push the knuckles out. So look at your hands. Okay, so you see your hand, you have much less support here and here, right? So the fingers. Okay, that's one of the things that the thumb is generally responsible for that. What happened in your hand is that you have the thumb, being what I call the king of the fingers, is huge. So we have a muscle here in that basically we should not use when we play the piano, but we have the muscle that, why we learn to do this, why we have the muscles to actually grip with the thumb. You have a muscle that goes inside your hand from here to here, attached to the bone of the third finger, right? So when you play, or if you hear a child play, they will play because the thumb naturally has weight. The fingers don't have much weight. It's very, very light. So what many children do, they lock their thumb. When you lock a muscle, you lose its natural weight. So the only thing is when you lock this finger, and this is one of the things that you have to be extremely careful, is when you text. right? You do this all the time. So all the time you're using the muscle of this, and this is extremely bad. I mean, it's bad. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's very unpractical when you play the piano, because your thumb is already shorter than the other fingers, right? So when you do this, you make it even shorter, and you lock this. Now, what happens when you lock your thumb? The other fingers have a really hard time to move, right? Because this is so powerful. So what we need to have in order not to play with the thumb relaxed, because then we would sound da 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 da. Every time you have a thumb, you have an accent. And by the way, you know the first Chopin etude, this one? Chopin writes an accent on this, on the fifth finger. Because at his time, not because you need to have an accent on the note, but because at his time, everybody was playing with an accent on the thumb. So when one was playing this. So this made it so that he said no. So for 2 bars, you have an accent on the fifth finger, so that you balance this right. So what happened is that in order not to have anything, to have the thumb basically as the other part of the support of the hand, we have to work and work so that the muscle actually that we have to do this, we actually do the other way around. We stretch it out. So you would use the muscle here, because you have muscles. And this is, I would really recommend all of you, if you're interested, to look in an anatomy book and check as to understand what happens. So you have, why is it that these 3 fingers are or these 2 fingers are much more powerful than these 2? Anybody knows?
Are they connected together? Are they?
Yeah, no, but this is, they're not really connected. I mean, they have muscles. There are 2 reasons. One reason, the main reason, is because this muscle of the thumb stops this extra muscle. So we have a muscle here for the second finger, or here for the second finger, here third finger, fourth finger. So these 3 fingers have an extra, especially these 2, an extra level of support, which is the muscle that comes from here, right? So which is actually a very strong muscle that we normally use this way, right? So these are supported. Not only they have their own muscle helping, this area. These 2 fingers don't. They are without the extra, right? And most of us, when we learn to play the piano, when we're playing with 5 fingers, these 2 fingers always seem to be playing as on an angle. So if I play even this, right, or even this. So for me, this is again, it's tension, yeah, but it's tension that I don't want the extra tension, because whenever I would play single notes, I want all my fingers to be able to play exactly the same sound. So, and the reason for this is that the connection between each note and then what's happening between the notes is connected for me like if you see a necklace. A necklace is made, how is a necklace? Anybody here ever made a necklace? No? Okay. Well, even if you see something like this, right? So what makes this, we get the illusion of a line, right? Okay, so let's say that all the pearls here are regular, right? So for me, each pearl is a note or a sound, right? So if you play, for example, if you play a scale, and this is to explain all the things that are included in playing a scale fast, right? So you have each note is going to be a pearl. What is important for us to get the illusion of a line? What is in when you see a necklace or something like this? What makes it so that we feel that it's a line, or the other way? What would make it so that we don't feel it's a line? It's the space between the pearls. Okay, so if you have a pearl here and then a pearl here and then a pearl here, if there's no, even if they are the same pearls, and if the space between the pearls is different, you will lose the illusion of a line. So the same thing when we play a scale and we do, or anything doesn't have to be a scale. If I do this, well, between this and this, so see, I don't practice. So if I go, even if I play very regularly every note, the space between the note is going to say, well, this is not regular. So what happens when it's irregular? You lose the illusion of the line, because it's an illusion to think that the piano is playing connected. When we play the piano, there is no connection between the notes. You have the hammer, like I said before, the hammer hits the string and says goodbye. Okay? So you are responsible for what's happening, the space, and how actually you are mentally, orally, emotionally or expressively, and physically, how you go between one finger to another. Now, we learn, I think that most of you know that if you keep your finger in the key, it doesn't make any difference. So if anybody pushes, and if I go, I learned to control this, but if I keep pushing a note, the sound is the piano says, I'm out of here. Anyway, so the problem with pushing is that if you push one finger, you don't have the connection or the anticipation for the next finger. So the attack, as I was telling you before, the attack, you control the sound, which is the attack of the finger, by the speed and the depth of your muscle. Once your sound is there, it's up to you, just like a singer when they say, how they are done with this, right? So it comes, you have to have something physically that will make you feel that you connect to another. Feel, but the many people, we all feel connection, but we also have to physically create a connection. Whatever it's between the fingers, or it's by moving the wrist so that we have, or much bigger from the breathing and from the whole arm business, right? So that we create a gesture of putting 5, 6, 7 notes, 10 notes, 100 notes, so one after another, and we create a line. We give the illusion of a line, okay? So in order to do that, I was going with the fourth and the fifth finger that are playing like this, so that if you play with a different kind of tension and depth, because your tendon actually has to do like this. For me, the first thing that has to happen when you move on the keyboard left and right is to bring your fourth and fifth finger aligned with your key, so that if I play, which happened with like Schumann, right? So I also believe that we have to work on the muscles that are between. It's not. This is another thing in your hand. This is not the muscle of the fifth finger. This is the what I call the sideboard of the hand, right? So you have a muscle, actually, also a reason why when your thumb is locked, you're locking the whole contour of your hand, right? Because the muscles here is connected by a big tendon here that goes all the way around, okay? So that's why for me the really to think of the hand as a platform, then the fingers can do whatever they need to do because they are supported. The first exercise that I give to learn to isolate the muscles that are here is this. So you will have the natural weight, so your wrist will be straight and I mean stable and no up, no down, right? So no river, no mountain, so that the flow comes, from here all the way. And so of course sometimes we're going to use the wrists when we need to bounce, but when you really want everything to go to the fingers, you're not going to lock anything this way or this way because it gets stuck here, right? The same way a singer has to open somehow the neck, doesn't have to be like this, right? So that everything can come out this way. So lately, for me, the image of everything comes here when I talk, everything comes here. When I go to my instrument, everything goes here, right? So there's really, you have to feel like a current. So it's like, it's your voice, right? The piano, the fingers are becoming your voice. I mean, with the piano, right? But it's you have much more control of the instrument, and you need more because this is not going to move. So you have to adapt all of yourself so that you can connect with the instrument, and so that there's a natural flow from here all the way to the fingers. So to go to this exercise, I realized that because of different reasons, I don't have a problem feeling my finger as one unit. Whatever position you give any angle in your fingers, you have to feel that your finger is actually one unit. So that I realized that when I give this exercise, that doesn't seem like an exercise, but you learn to isolate really the underneath here the muscle. And so this is the only tension that you're going to have in this exercise, so this is going to be stable, not lock, right? There's nothing in piano playing, except sometimes when you have to play extremely loud and fast, then I think that there are certain things that we may lock so that we can vibrate. But generally, I don't believe in locking, but I do believe that stabilizing and be aware of a stabilization of a finger, first of all, because I think this is the end, if you want, but I think we have to begin with that, so that if this is solid and the finger are responsible to stay stable, then everything else can come. Most of the time when I see someone doing this, it's because whatever the emotion or the good tension that one would like to transfer to the instrument gets stuck here. Why? Because this is not solid. So that when you lock somewhere, that means that there's a weakness somewhere else. So often the same thing with the thumb. How many times did I hear when I was young, well, relax your thumb? Well, how can I relax my thumb if everything is based on this, right? So when you play your fourth finger, often you're going to see people, maybe some of you, when you play your fourth finger, your thumb is going to go like this. Why? Because the muscle that supports the fourth finger is weak, or is not. The hand is not aware of it, right? So you also have to know that all of your hands have their own, and the fingers have their own intelligence, and you have to trust this, so that they all have the tip of the fingers. There's a lot of nerve endings, so this is very helpful to actually feel that anybody. Can you put your hands in front of you? And what do you feel? No, just relax, right? Just so. Can you feel the tip of your fingers? Really, the tip, right? So this is the first awareness that you have to somehow develop without touching anything. Because when you go to the keyboard, the sense of touch is something that's it's not for me, it's not a finally when everything is set muscularly and the way, it's the touch of the finger that will give you somehow will be a big part of the sound that you're going to create. It's not the playing itself, it's a further touch. When you think, depending of also what kind of music you're playing, but in general, your fingers will always feel much more comfortable if they touch the key. Even if you play a melody, so the direction, the idea of bringing the finger where they have to be, so that the finger can touch the key before it plays. It will add something totally personal, because we all have different touch, different finger, the same way we all have different voice. Okay, so the sound. If I ask you to come here, you will all sound different, but the more you're going to be in control or with a lot of awareness of your body, will you say, okay, this is my sound. This is because this is my voice, right? So, to go back to the hand, this is the first exercise. So you will see that the natural weight of all the exercise to develop the more awareness and more feeling of these muscles here, so that are all based little by little on adding natural weight. What I mean by natural weight is the weight of here, for example, is going to be on this muscle, right? So if I do fifth finger, so, and all the other fingers, so independently you can do that. Now, what I was realizing in the last few years is that when students, even this exercise, many students' fingers collapse, right? So it's due to some of them, some of us have what we call double joint, right? This is something that, because I don't have it myself, I'm not so sure exactly how one can go through the finger, because the double joint often happens here. The double joint here is not so important, but the one in the middle, it's connected also, because once you collapse this, or I see some of them have the finger inside. Anybody here knows if they are double joint? But anyway, so the other thing that you should know about the hands and the fingers, in order to get to the tip of the finger, because this is our goal, right? Is that I always thought, again, wrongly, that we had the tendon from here and that it was becoming muscles. Wrong. We have the muscle, the tendon. We have a tendon until this articulation, right? And then from here, there's another one that goes here. So this is why a lot of the time, naturally, people would do this instead of this, because the tendon actually has to go to the, there's an extra one. So again, if you look in an anatomy book, or on the web, there's plenty of you can see exactly how your finger is actually made, right? So so you have this long tendon. So we have to be very careful, because I don't think that we were born to play the piano. I don't think that physically, right? Because there's something very awkward. The thumb should have had a special, because we have a thumb basically to do this, right? To grab. That's why we have a thumb. That's why this muscle is so important. So the piano should have had keys like this. There's no other. Not only the piano doesn't move, right? So we have to adapt everything, which I'm going to come about soon on that. The other thing is that it's the only thing in life that I know of where the thumb, and maybe on organ is the same, but I mean keyboard, the thumb is asked to do the same thing as the other fingers, right? When you play the violin, you have your thumb supporting your instrument. You play anything in life, right? So it's a position that not only, the thumb has a whole history by itself on the keyboard. For a long time, people were not playing they were not using the thumb because that wasn't, so they would play only, right? So this was when the harpsichord, when you had very small instruments. So there was no question of distance. Then people began to use, the thumb for chords and things like that. But for many, many years, until some people, even until today, they won't use the thumb on the black key, which is understandable because if you don't think as your hand is one unit, right? So to go with the thumb on the black key, there's a lot of things that physically you have to do in order to actually move on the keyboard. So for example, there's a difference in your bicep if you're on a white key and if you go with your thumb on the black key. There's a small movement, we have to go up a little bit, right? So this has to be, again, it's not something that we have to put in a square and say, okay, this is this and this is this. No, but it means that when you're on the key, when you're playing, and you have to play on a black key with your thumb, because probably from Beethoven and certainly Chopin, they all use thumb on the black keys. I mean, so but there are still some. I remember when I got my first job in New Mexico. I had many students who came and they looked at me like I was a witch that, I would ask them to give them fingering so that the thumb would be on the black key. It's like, oh, no. I mean, can't do that. So I had, I sort of putting a note in my door saying, in this studio you can put your thumb on the black key. Mm-hmm. But so it's a completely different technique of, but you have to, especially with the music of today, thumb goes everywhere, but it has to be, again, the concept of the hand. And so you have to be aware in many instances that the thumb is actually short in relation to the other fingers. For example, when you do what I call a shift, and so if you do fast, I don't know if any of you can see, but when you go, I'll show you with your left hand, when you do this, right? Most of the time you will find much easier to play your thumb at the edge of the key of the keyboard. Why? Because when you have to go left, right with you, right? My thumb is also able to release. If I play my thumb here, so if I play, yeah, I'm stuck there. So the idea of, so I can release my thumb and my third finger, fourth finger, second finger, anything that will come after will play so that you respect this about distance between the thumb. So the thumb will be here and naturally unless you have extremely long fingers, but then even more, you will place, you see, you don't have to do anything. It will be a totally horizontal, only horizontal motion. None of this. But if you play your thumb in the middle, you will have to cross over, right? Which for me is works very well when you play slowly. So this is why when you work on something and it's a slow thing, this doesn't matter because you have plenty of time to do this and to reset after. The problem is not to cross. The problem is when you have something that goes like this. If you do this, then you have to reset. So the problem will be the next note because you won't be in alignment. But with the fourth finger and the fifth finger, so for example, when you do this, I personally will never play I would always play so that my fourth and fifth finger are aligned here and aligned with the key. So that I have much more chance of having them play with the same sound as the other fingers, and my thumb is not going to go. If I do immediately when if my fourth finger is weak, that means if I didn't work on this, my thumb is going to go like this. So it's going to create a total chaos for a very short time in the hand, right? So that's why for me I don't like chaos in once I'm on the keyboard. I want so that my ear, my brain, my whatever I want to express, so that my fingers are there and there's no chaos. Because when there's physical chaos, everything, there's very difficult to sustain anything. So that would be for the finger. So you have to learn to stabilize or to feel. I don't think that the position of the finger, some people play with finger like, very, very curved. Some people play with finger more open. I think that you will all find the natural. But the thing is that once you are in a position, you should be able to move the finger from here and a little bit from here, but with feeling the support that there's really a whole thing here that's going to support wherever they go, so that you can then bypass this and go and touch here. Okay, so that's for the fingers and the hand. So you have, for me, there's a lot of work, but I have to tell you that I know, for example, the exercise for the thumb is to really massage and become aware of the muscles that's going from here to the third finger. For some people, it goes a little bit further than the third finger, that even if it's attached to the bone. So everyone, again, every hand is different, but the basis of this is, so if you really feel this muscle, you will be able that you can open your hand, and that you can, so you will feel the opening, little by little. It's almost like and then you will feel also when you do this with your thumb, you're actually going to open your hand, and you're going to feel the connection between this. So this again is it comes with spending time and being aware, becoming aware of knowing how your hand is, and how you can stabilize the fingers one at a time, and how you're gonna when you play something, that the fingers, that for me it makes life so much easier, because the fourth and fifth finger don't feel at all like weak fingers, like many people are going to tell you that there's nothing you can do. Yes, you can work on this, and you can also work on your thumb, so that when the fourth finger plays, it doesn't take all the power. That's the main problem with the thumb. So, but you see, the thumb, like I was telling you before, the thumb should have had a keyboard here and being able to play here. That would have been the natural, right? So it's like when you grab something or grip something, the thumb is opposite, right? Piano is something completely different. So there's not really anything in any movement in life when we actually learn to have the hand as not five people, but five, so that's the unit, right? So the strength is here. Okay, so we go, for me, I'm telling you from here because it's easier, and also it's more important to really make sure that this works. Now, what do we have after the hand? The wrist. Okay. Now, the wrist is something, again, that I believe that should never be locked, right? But you should be able to be stable, so that whatever you want to play, you will be able to stabilize it whenever necessary, or use it if you need to go left and right. Now, one of the ways for me to use, like, if I do something, an arpeggio, this is another thing that I see a lot. When you play chords, okay, no choice, you have to have everything in between the fingers. But when you play arpeggios, it's one note at a time. So if I play something like this, so people will say, oh, it's this. It's not. It's this. And you're going to begin to move from your wrist, from your elbow, from your upper arm, so that you don't have to do to keep, right? So when you play an arpeggio, like if this, right? So I'm going to have my third finger aligned with the G, and then I'm going, right? So that's when the wrist becomes extremely useful horizontally. Okay, so that if I need to go like just this, or so to have these two fingers in front of the key, and never keep, unless it's a chord, never keep 1 and 2 when you play these fingers. So for me, there is no reaching. There's no because the fingers should always be brought wherever they need to be, by the wrist, by the elbow, by the pectoral muscle, by the back. Okay, so that if I need to go here, right? If I play the first sharp etude, again, if I was like this, I wouldn't have to go here, but I would use the wrist because my shoulder would be here, so I wouldn't have to calculate so that this is all here the same way as it is here, right? So the wrist, but the wrist often is going to work with the elbow. Now, what happens after the elbow? What moves the elbow? How do you move your elbow left and right? No, the one thing you do in your movement, you're going this way. Keyboard is flat. Another problem of the piano, right? So if I'm going here, the easiest way to, for example, when you play this, right? There's not so much the notes, but it's the fact that my elbow is going to stay at the same level, right? So what do I move in order to do that? Because again, we have to deal with this, right? So what do you move? Yes, you move your pectoral muscle and your back, right? So this is a muscle that my own experience tells me that if I'm nervous, or if I'm don't feel particularly whatever solid, or the first reaction we all do, we lock this, right? Now, when you go left and right, this doesn't need to be locked at all. And so when you become aware enough so that you can feel that your upper arm is hanging from your shoulder, where the shoulder is a continuation of the pectoral muscle and the back, right? So that if I'm like standing up and you go to your instrument, what do you need to do?
Sit down.
Wow. Well, okay, I'll sit down. I'll sit down. Okay, I'll sit down. And now?
Put the arm in front of you.
How do I do that?
With the back and the pectoral muscle.
I think first, that like you show, you have to. Can you play the piano this way? And happily, again, the piano is here, right? Mm-hmm. So there is a rotation that has to happen so that you actually this way, and then you go this way, or you can do this way and then, or this way, right? And then, right? So this is something that we're not aware anymore, right? But we should, because And this is something also that I realized not so long ago. This is the rotation that the body needs to do in order to have the hand in front, right? Then when people talk about rotation, which I talk about rotation a lot, when we play, when we open this way, right? It's not rotation, it's a de-rotation. You get it, right? It doesn't matter, but I mean, so this is the first, the rotation that you, so you like naturally, I mean, not many people walk around this way. Some people do, so then don't have to do anything, right? You just go like this. But the body this is the natural position of the arms, right? Okay, so you have this, and so already you have to know, okay, so when people talk about being relaxed when you go and play the piano, there's no relaxation there. Already standing up, and as you say, I have to sit, so I have to use some muscles that I'm not laying down, right? So then we do this, we do this. Okay, so what are the muscles that are making us stay like this? Bicep. Okay, so if I do this with my arm, I have to use. So anytime when you are on the piano, your bicep is engaged so that you stay there. Now, so that's you can stay like this for a long time. It's actually even easier to stay like this. But can we play the piano like this? No, piano is not here either. Right? So we have to lift the hand, and there will be again a certain tension in the elbow, so that we stay here, and so we can stay here, right? And so then you move this, and if you're going to go left and right with your arm, so that you bring your fingers where you need to be, right? So if I do this, if I play like this, okay, I can play, but after a few pages, this is going to be hurting. Why? Because my fingers have to reach, right? So also then the sound changes, right? So it's not just that it is painful. So you have really the most important thing when you sit at your instrument, and as a form of support, is like, yes, you have the chair, so your butt is on the chair. You have, your foot pedal, and then you have to use your torso more or less in relation to how wide you are. Okay, so if you're like this, then you will be here. You won't have to do anything. I have to move to get there, so that my elbow and my hands are feeling as comfortable here as it is here. If I play, right? So maybe. So this will stay. So it's very important whenever you find a difficulty somewhere, so that your elbow doesn't go. Whenever you open your arms, and again, how much you depend, it changes depending the width of your shoulder. But you see, if I go like this, I'm going up. So when I'm higher than the keyboard, because I believe that the Chopin always said the elbow should be at the same level as the keyboard. So if I'm here, that's already a huge amount of tension so if I do this, so if I move from my hip to here, but keeping my core and keeping the stability here and my left leg, then I'm fine, etc., right? So that the position, so you always have to, especially when you're looking for a certain sound, when you're looking to sustain a phrase, for example, you have to remember that it's like if you see someone, especially you can see children when they are watching TV, they are not tense, but they are intense, but they're not moving. Okay, so there's the concentration is all the extra movement. Yes, we can do it when we're done. You can be but if you let your fingers concentrate in the contact with the key, you're not going to have all kind of movements. You have to respect and be aware, where's my keyboard? Where's the piano? So you have to adapt to the keyboard. And that's something that, the same thing, my teacher used to call it topography of the keyboard. For if I played octave this, like this, like that, if I'm playing things on that go, if I stay too far, I have to find an area here to play between white and black keys. So everything has to do with when you really go to the bottom of how do we move horizontally on the keyboard. Well, you have pivotation is one. So if I play this, right? If I have big hands and if I have big movement, if I don't play too fast, I'm going to use pivotation. So, or if I do this, right? So the fingers, after they release, they pivot. So that's one way. Another way is rotation. So if I go this way, right? So I'm going back to the natural position of my hand. And so this is something that anybody who works with rotation, your wrist has to be stabilized, because if you do this kind of thing, then there's nothing. Again, the movement has to come, the gesture has to come from there. So whenever it's possible, the physical gesture has to be, and this is why Chopin, for example, is such a wonderful, it's an example that his musical gesture is the same as his physical relations. That means by reading the music, you learn how Chopin moved. And I believe that in all the composers that composed for the piano, that some of them, they were amazing pianists. And so you have to try to recreate their gesture. They're not just the fingers and the speed of the fingers and the depth, which is, by itself a huge chapter. I mean, it can take a long time to explain how. But so today is just the basis that I give you. But so the goal is when you know your instrument, you begin to feel the musical gesture, right, as a physical gesture or a pianistical gesture, whatever you want. Now you have composers that compose things that are not necessarily for the piano. So you don't have necessarily an easy, and sometimes there will be chaos. For example, Schumann is one composer that I find it's difficult sometimes to adapt to his gesture, because the character of the music changes every bar sometimes, right? So the same thing when the same idea when you move to composer from the 20th century who has now this instrument. This becomes much more a question of vertical. Sometimes the music then the vertical wins over the horizontal. Okay, so that you have much more like a percussion instrument, right? So when you play things that are whatever until even Debussy, I believe, had. I mean, yes, there was a piano, but it was a very light instrument that he worked with, like Pleyel, Gaveau. The French pianos are much lighter. So the pianistic and the physical aspect of it is something that you have to think. Okay, how do you produce the sound? It will be, for example, a very fast attack, a long pedal. So that will be part of the language of that composer. If you play Prokofiev, you have something much more vertical, much more angular a lot of the time. And sometimes you have huge melodies that are like, could be considered like Chopin's melody. So once you have the approach with your instrument, then you can begin to see, okay, what movement will create the sound, the physical gesture, if to create the musical gesture that I want. So it's not something that it's a little bit like playing with Play-Doh. You have to feel with your instrument, that it is an instrument. Your fingers are an instrument of, for your brain, your ear, and your heart. But I can be highly intelligent and I hear very well, I have a world of listening inside, and I have a heart of gold. If I don't have the physical connection with the whatever one call, people call it technique. For me, it's not a question of technique. It's a connection with how do I connect all these things with a physical way to play the piano. This, I think, is something that we always have to remember. In general, so I don't know why, but I think because we are all loner, we practice alone most of the time, right? We don't have much contact with other pianists. And this is, like a place like here is wonderful because you can begin to, ask each other questions or exchange fingerings. Fingerings is another thing that I think is extremely connected to that. And so a fingering would be wonderful for a person and maybe not, but sometimes to hear, oh, this person is using this finger. Okay, if I use this fingering, what is the musical thing that I'm going to get that I don't have with this? Sometimes you have way of practicing certain things, way of thinking, right? But that's something with pianists that we have to be aware and not stay in our, cubicle where we practice and, and that's it, right? And so another thing that I think is not directly concerned with the technique of the piano, but the ear is, that I think, again, for all of you that I heard, you play the instrument, but you're not really saying too much because you're very concerned about the playing, right? So you have to make sure that you're listening so that you know what you want to hear when you go to the piano. So that listening to a lot of Beethoven symphony, Beethoven string quartet, orchestral piece, to have an idea, okay, I'm playing a Debussy prelude. Do I know how it has to sound? No, you have to know. You have heard and really listen to what's the sound. It's necessarily a gesture, but it's like, okay, at the piano do I imitate the sound of an oboe, or more a clarinet, or a cello, or a violin, or a singer, right? So again, you can be absolutely wonderful in all the areas that you need, but if you don't really know how to use your instrument, this instrument and this instrument and this instrument, you're not gonna be able to. The people will not respond necessarily, right? So often I find that everyone has something to say, but they don't always know how to say it. And so for me, this whole physical aspect of playing, or pianistic, or whatever you want to use the word, is extremely important to also cultivate that. Not just but it's not enough. You have this, and then you have the ear, and you have there are many, many things. Like I said in the beginning, it's a tool, right? But it's an important tool. Okay? So now, anybody has anything that they want to ask me, whatever it's a passage, whatever it's something that they have a question, I'll be happy to answer any question. Yeah?
You spoke about the muscles in the hands, so they are between the fingers.
Yeah, you can check if you look in. You can even see on the web. Yeah. Whenever.
I have already read a book actually about this, but I didn't really understand. I read it's just about stability of the hand. But so are they connected with both fingers?
No, I'm not talking about the tendon. The tendon that we're talking about, there are some. I personally don't think that it's important at all. What is important is the muscle. There are separate muscles here and here, right? So it's the muscle basically that if you have a strong muscle like here, you see you have most everyone has these two bones really. So what it is the strong muscles underneath. Mm-hmm. right? But it's a muscle that goes just over the articulation. So it begins, I think, somewhere around here, and it goes this way. It finishes here. So it's the one that makes us do this, right? But so it's not something that it has to be. It has to be. So you have to feel. So that when I do this, when I drop weight, right? If I do this, the impact will be here. So, and then the finger will just receive whatever, but you won't have any, you don't have to do this and then, right? So that when, for example, when you want to use the natural weight of your arm, of your forearm, so that if you have something big sound, right? So you would go this, like, if I do this, see, it not only it hurts, but so I will keep my wrist stable. Right? But if I don't have any muscles here and stability in my fingers, then this is going to be like that, right? So the sound is not going to be like open, right? So that's very important to feel, for example, the power or the whatever you want to call it, from here to here, even not necessarily to the fingers. So that when you do this and then you do this, right? See, so that this is really two parts. For me, this is basically where the fingers are, and so it also has a lot of natural weight. But so natural weight is like, if I see, for example, the bicep that I was, in order to be here. So the upper arm, you will always have tension in your bicep, but if you drop, then the bicep releases, right, will relax, right? And so you will have. That's like if you do this, right? So if I guess I need to be in front. So this is engaged, and now I let it go. And so my fingers and this are going to be solid enough so that it will receive the weight, right? And so on top of it, I can also open more here so that I will have, the opening, so that also the power from here. I believe that all our power is, central to here, and so you feel like it just opens, right? So that is, and it's a question of a position. So if you're like this, sometimes one would be again, but it will not be. If you want an open sound and a big sound, you're not going to be like this, right? And so the opening is also to do with communication with your instrument, so that, right? But also when I was talking to him this morning, when you play, sometimes, and I think especially men, you have a tendency to stay like this. So you have to know that when you play, to use a little bit of the natural weight and lean forward a little bit, it's not going to make you play louder, but it's a natural way of, again, that in the phrase, when you want to get a little bit more in, so that you have a little bit more sound, but it's the same way how physically you are. If you don't like someone, you're not going to embrace. So there's something about the piano sometimes, or the piano or the music that you're playing, that somehow you want to embrace it. So there will be a sense of close. To be close to the keyboard. So but naturally it will also give your fingers a certain carpet of sound if this is relaxed, right? But I think often, and I think it's a sense of defense. I can feel it also myself when I play, and I don't feel that great. I keep myself. So this is going to be tight, and then everything becomes a little bit more painful, right? So I remember that this one, I had for years, problems with, not just to play it, but to finish it, and especially during concerts. And so, maybe a month or 2 months ago, I realized that I'm so somehow stressed about this etude. No, not, but that one stresses me out, right? So what do? Immediately I realized that my upper arm was tight. So even if I move, this is tight, so the fingers after a while is like, gee, this hurts, I want to stop, right? So, and if this is relaxed, there's much less accumulation of tension from here, because if you tight here, everything here is going to be a little bit tight, right? So, just like, okay, so let's breathe, right? This is where you go again. You go into your core, and then it's okay. So the feeling of having the upper arm hanging from the shoulder. So this is why this position is not. I mean, sometimes it's important when you have a lot of space between your arms, but so that your elbows are not kind of like this. But so this doesn't help. So to be here and to say, okay, like people will say, open your shoulder. It also sometimes can bring some rigidity. So it's just like, no, this is solid, the back is solid, shoulder, and then my upper arm is hanging. So always as much as possible, unless of course you need tension. But again, there will always be tension here. So then when you go into a key, there's tension, there's energy, and there's tension, right? For me, it's also something that is separate from moving on the keyboard. Sometimes the music requires some different kind of tension. And so for me, the tension has to come much more not from here so much. I mean, there's a range of sound that one can create from this also. But when you it's like when you feel something, the feeling of really tensing up big muscles, it will affect but it won't make you not move. I mean, so that there is something when there are certain things that are more demanding, like for example in Schumann, you have to find, at least I find for myself, that I have to keep, an intensity, right? So the best I can say with intensity, it is translated physically in tension, but it's tension in a different place than here. It's not a tension that will make it hard for you to move. Right? So you have to place it lower. If it's too high, I mean, if someone is emotional and places too high, then again, it affects everything, right? So you have to lower, and don't get rid of your tension. Whatever tension is, don't get rid of it. But place it where it's going to have, because without tension, you're not going to be, everything will be boring, right? So so you have to, Life is, I mean, music for me is life. It's the same thing. So it's a question all the time of tension and release, action and release. So a lot of it also of piano playing for me has to do with the natural that I see everywhere in nature, action and reaction, right? So sometimes if we do action, then it doesn't work very well. So for example, if you play an arpeggio, when you go this way, that will be action because you're going out of the body. When you return, it's a reaction, right? Anything that we do in life is we go out of our body, it's action. When we return, it's reaction. And we're not going to stay there, right? So, and it's not this either. So if I go to talk to you and if I do this, then my hand is going to return, right? So there is something like this always in music, and there's always something in life, and there's also in piano playing. So you have the action and the reaction when your finger releases the key. So it's action, reaction, right? So anything that goes out of your body this way is action. I mean, it will be. So going this way will be action and return. So sometimes we go this way, so this will be, because it's going opposite direction, so this will be, if I go this way, so this will be much more powerful than this. And so action will be here and reaction will be this, and then this will be action or reaction. So people have the same thing, for example, when you play this, right? I can think, so my movement would be I, right? Or T. So see this for me, it's this way, right? So a tira, tira. So the action is here, and this is reaction. Da, da. But one can do tira, tira, tara, tara, this way. So going this way, but nothing. So especially that you have the the top notes. Right? Do you have more questions? So you were asking about the. Don't worry so much about how the tendons are connected in the middle of your palm. Think we have enough with the finger, the muscles that are here, and so see if you do this, which is often how one plays, even with your wrist flat, right? So this you will feel much more tension here, right? So that if you so this is for me when I can, of course, because it's not always possible, but I would always release the note before so that I can have these two fingers. So I will pivot, or I will just move, but generally it will be a pivotation from the third and the second finger, so that these fingers, not only, you see, they don't have this, but they're also shorter than the other. So it's like, really, and this is all they give us, where the hand is round. That's another problem. The hand is round, piano is completely square. Okay, so it's not going to move around for you. If I had a violin, something is round when I can move it around. This stays there, and that's it. So the fact that the hand is round, we have to compensate from somewhere so that we can still. And so this is why we have a wrist. So this use the wrist this way. Of course, you will use the wrist this way when you want to bounce things, right? But so, for example, octave, if you play this, right? You need a light sound. You're going to have what they call wrist octave, right? But if I play this, it will be from here, and I will keep my wrist stable. Right? So so again, in relation to the sound that you want, you're going to do this, or you're going to do this, or you're going to be on the key.
So you mean the most important muscles are here for playing? Related to the hand are here.
No, the most important. Well, it depends where you begin. If you play octave like this, right, and you don't have time to release. Yes, you have to, but this will be the muscle finger, and then from here, right? So if I go like this, so yes, the fingers have to play, so we need something here, right? This is, for example, for me, it's one of the etudes that I cannot really play the whole thing without warming up, to practice a few days before, right? So that, because I don't have, see, females have the speed in their muscles, the speed of generally, as far as playing, right? The speed of the contraction of the muscle is actually often better with women, or more, faster with women. But men have much more fibers in there. It's probably also why, because it's faster. The women can go faster with the attack. So the contraction itself, because there's less fibers. But men have more, in whatever muscles they have, there's more fibers, so you have more much more of a possibility of depth of contraction. So that if I do this and you do this, if we had to measure, right, you would be always stronger. It's right. So female can create sound with speed. Anybody actually can create sound with speed, and I'm hoping that tonight we will hear somebody that has speed. Unbelievable speed in the attack, right? So that means it permits a certain amount of sound that's extremely precise, but also a lot of sound, because some people, there's not that, but there are some people who have both. Right? So you have to know, but you have to learn, for example, when you play a note, if you know, for example, a note that doesn't sound, right? When we want to play very soft. Well, people say when you play very soft, you're going to play also very slow. Well, no, because if you play too slow and with no depth in the sound, nothing comes out, right? So you always need a certain amount of speed of contraction so that so if I, right? So if I play, but if I do this slowly, see, this is not going to be heard very far, right? So these are the muscles of the finger. So yes, they are very important because they are finally the one who are creating the sound, right? That means you have the fingers, the touch. For me, I was educated with a huge amount of tactile. No, I wouldn't say research, but a lot of contact. So for me, to touch the keyboard is one of the first things. So people say, "Oh, we play the piano." Well, you can think for yourself. What verb would you use when you go to the piano? It wouldn't. I mean, for me, it's certainly not playing. It's caressing, or it's more to do with caressing, or just to touch, right? So that from the touch, and this is a big part of my education, that I was brought up with a method where a student of Liszt analyzed, Marie-Jaël, she analyzed the sound of Liszt and his technique. And so she has, and so my teacher basically took all her ideas that were actually very far out there. And so, but basically she believed that everything was done by touch. She didn't talk about anything muscular. So that, and actually when you do touch something, there is a tendency for the muscles here to actually support. If you play with no touch or very little connection, then that doesn't really help. So this is where I am right now, to try to connect what I learned myself with, and this tactile, which I realized the more I played, the more it's something that is essential to me. But then I relearn a lot of things because the way how everything became very clear for me, and also I used a lot because when I began to teach, I realized that I wasn't really able to help anybody to play better because all their hands were, completely kind of in a weird position and right. So then I knew from visually, since I'm very young, that when I was about 14, 15, I said, well, if I want to be a pianist, I need to have this bone out, right? And so when you see people playing and they have the hand like this, it's like, why is life so easy for them, right? They just move and I mean, not always, but it's something that really helps. And so when I began to teach, that's what I concentrated on, and so I got it myself. And so I can tell you that life is much easier once you have this. So it's something that not many people believe, but I believe because I did it myself, because I see many of my students using this. And so it takes a while so that it becomes natural or second nature. But I remember one time I had an older student, and one time she called me maybe 2 years after she stopped studying with me, and she called me. She said, "Oh, I was picking up my cucumbers in my garden, and suddenly I saw my thumb." And so she was very excited because all of a sudden, her. But for example, if there are sometimes I would not practice, I continue to do this exercise and also with this, because if I stop, then my hand loses, it goes back to its normal, old position, which was fine, but not really any support underneath, right? So it's like, even if I don't practice, I will do this when I'm driving or whatever, and so my hand. So when I go back to the piano, I don't have much of a problem. Everything is in place, right? So it's much more other things that that I have to work. Yeah. Anybody has a passage or something they want to show to?
Just a question.
Yeah.
When you say pivotation, are you thinking of like one movement in particular, or is it a combination of movements from different places?
Pivotation is when you use a finger. So when after you play a note, if I do this, for example, right? I don't do, but so this, yes, the pivotation is that it basically, where does it begin? Well, it begins here, and then you elbow and your wrist until you go. But you need, and this is what Chopin writes, for example, in something like this. When you have this note is longer. You don't push on it, and you actually pivot. You need the support of your hand in order to pivot, and so also the stability of the finger. So when I go, so I can go anywhere. And then when it's getting too big, and then I will use the rotation. So if I do, even if I do something like this, pivotation would not help me, but it has to be some kind of, right? So I move the movement, and I will keep the sound, right? Right, so that I can go. So here there's no tension. It's not even tension, but yes, there's tension here. So because I have to support this, right? So it will be in my back, it will be in my pectoral muscles, and then I move. But if you have, for example, this, what is it? There, right? So this is going to be the pivotation, right? So that it permits to go without this, right? So, so it's after I play the note, then for a pivotation, I will stay like this, and I will move things to the...
You kind of lead from...
Oh, yeah.
But then all of this reacts.
Exactly. So this and this, that's what we have articulation, so we should use them, right? So there's nothing that's rigid. The only thing stable that's kind of, can feel a little bit like a piece of wood is from here to here, but you actually act from here, right? So you can do this. But so when you have the pivotation, right? Now if I'm gonna go here, then I'm gonna use the rotation, because this takes too much time. So, right? So again, from here, right? And I'm gonna use this. Also, I think men do or need less because the hand is larger and because you're wider here. But when you use the rotation, you actually don't use your finger vertically. You use your finger as you use the side of the hand. So if you do, right? So when you go back, especially on the black key, it sounds totally different. So if I go like this, right? It's just incha, incha, incha. Again, a natural movement from the body, right? Just to go there. So you have the pivotation, yes. So from here, everything that I say a lot of the time, I remember I read a long time ago that Claudia Rao say, well, every sound that we play comes from the shoulder. And I read this and I said, that's so weird. But then it's maybe from here. I think it's even more from here. But that's also why he plays so slowly. I mean, a lot of, because every movement is actually, every sound is felt from here. It takes much more time, right? But when you have it, it's like the whole opening of here that for me is, there are some specific that in relation to the width of the instrument. But then you have the pivotation. That's how you're going to go from one note to another. So, or unless your fingers are next to. But even when you do this, so, right, I'm going to pivot so that these can be, right? But the pivotation should happen right after you hit the bottom of the key, right? So, not not during the attack. So you play the note facing the key, and then while you release, you go. Right? So, and then you have, for example, there's always this etude. This I don't believe is on rotation. It's a little bit of pivotation, but not much. But it's based on, right? So if I practice like this, so these two fingers are really your movers when you play. These are the followers or the singers, whatever you want, right? So if you play any of this, so if I go here, yeah. It's not, it's like I have to learn to measure from here, from here, right? So that my fingers will be completely free, but will go. Right? So I wouldn't consider it as strict, but there are certain things once you take in consideration every aspect on the keyboard, and what do we have to do to move so that our life is actually kind of pleasant, so we can, right? So there is a lot of things to, even when I do something like this, right? I mean, I keep myself grounded here, right? So even if I do this, yes, I may move like this, but my left foot will be really, okay, we're sitting here, right? So when I go, it's not like this, or it's right? And then go. So something like this, the same thing as this. It's right. So you have again these two fingers. Same thing in this one. Right. So that these two fingers are again the mover because they are connected so much with the arm. So you question when this the most important? No, it's not the most important, but it's important, right? First of all, because it's in between the elbow and the support, and so once you know how to move your elbow, then this is going to be more active, but it has to be supported from here, right? So it's not something more important than others, but so that's why every part you have to say, okay, where am I? How am I? Right, in the keyboard. Yeah. Any more question? Yeah.
How do you go about thinking about the approach for repeated notes?
I don't play them. No. No. There's one piece actually, the Alborada. I don't know how this. You can. It's based on the release on the pressing. So if you do right, so I mean if it's the same note, there's a lot of speed in going in, but then there's a lot of speed in the first part of from the bottom up, so that the next one can actually play. So it has to do with speed of the right. So the speed of the reaction has to be very fast, so that because if I keep pushing, then I won't work. So it's really the thing I think one has to do is to practice two notes, or if it depends if it's generally would be the same finger. I mean a different finger, right? So you begin also anything that you want to play fast. The idea is to do two notes fast, and then three notes fast, and then four notes fast, and then 5 or 6 or how many. So it's the same thing. The release that you need is the same then it's just the same note, right? So that because for me that's another thing that people are not always very happy when I say that, but I don't believe that when you need to play something fast, that you practice it slowly. There's absolutely nothing in the world that anybody does to practice speed. Because in speed, what's the most important thing in speed? Anticipation, right? So it's like if you drive anything that you do fast, where does the speed begins? Okay? So if you can't think fast, or if you can't envision something fast, or if you can't, so yes, you need, the fluidity will come from something that you anticipate. If I don't know where I'm going, it's not going to help. I mean, if I take a lot of time to get somewhere, it's like, it always makes me kind of laugh when somebody practice something slow and say, well, I practice. And how do you practice? Oh, I practice slow. Well, how do you expect from practicing low all of a sudden you're going to be able to play fast? Oh, well, I put my metronome and every day I play a little bit faster. I think that there's much, it is much more effective if you actually, if it's like if you have to run, if you have to prepare for a short distance running, you're not gonna walk all day, right? So you're gonna learn to go short distance and then a little bit longer and a little bit longer with the speed that you need for the, right? So there's always, of course, you have to know more or less the notes. But once you begin to practice to play again slow and slow, even a little bit faster, your brain is still in a very kind of slow process, half asleep. And so if we practice, even something like, it doesn't have to be, a Chopin etude, but even if it's a passage. For example, it's like the way that I work and I teach how to practice is that before you play something, even musically or before you begin, you have to have an idea of the whole phrase. Yeah, even when you play the beginning of 110, it's not the technical things at all. But you have anything that you will begin, you have to have a sense, where am I going? Not just the first note, not just so you have anticipation of something. So an anticipation is very important during a performance too, because you don't want to anticipate too much, too early. You have to be a little bit like in life, you have to be in the moment, but you have to know where you're going, right? So that it's clear. So, for example, for the speed, it's the same system. If I want to practice, okay, I have to play this. So I will practice first before I will think, okay, what do I need? The first 4 notes in this example, and I'm going to prepare so that I have the position for the next group. So that the four notes that I will play plus the placement to the next group. If I'm not satisfied with it, I will practice these 4 notes. So, but I will, my brain will have to be on alert, and not, because the nothing in that tempo is giving you any anticipation of anything. If you're looking for movement or something, that's different. I'm not talking about that. Sometimes when you want to play, when you need to play a melody very fast, then maybe sometimes you will or you will play it, but you will not. For me, the term practice is there's an energy, fast energy that has to awaken energy that has to be done. It doesn't have to be necessarily on the piano, but your brain has to be on. If not, there's no practicing. It's all mechanical, and then you better not do anything. But so the idea of groups is that you have the concentration of the next 4 notes, what fingers, what sound, what do I need? So that's it. And so I'm here. Okay, so I'm here, and also I'm not going to be pushing, so that I can, every 4 notes, I can reset myself. If I'm all of a sudden I'm like this, or if a finger didn't play properly, I will have time to hear. Okay, I will check everything so that I have the minimum. And sometimes you will need more time, so that the time that you won't hear anything, you will be anticipating what comes and give your brain all the information necessary to the next one. Then when you're done with 4, then you can try 8, or you can, depending on where you are, you can, sometimes it will be 6. Like if you do this. Then sometimes you can, if it's still difficult, you shrink the time of concentration between the groups. Okay, that's so that you actually fix things like this, and then the time will be, the time of concentration will shrink, so that almost nothing, but you will continue to have a flash of information always before your fingers are actually playing what they are, and so that all the orders from here to here or anywhere are going to be before, right? So this is, if somebody, you were saying control, well, that will help so that the fingers don't go by themselves. For me, it's something that, and it's probably also in relation to my education, but nothing comes mechanically. I don't believe in practicing mechanically. So this is why when you practice, you have to do, okay, what am I doing? So not just repeating something. I mean, yes, we learn by repetition, but it has to be said here, or said here, or said here, so that it's like, oh, okay, so if I, so that when you come to a moment that you have to perform, you have had the experience of playing this, so that you know what's going to happen. It's not like, oh God, I need help, right? No, it will be like things that also helps to calm somebody, so because you feel that everything is, it's just the same way as when you go to a city, and you know the city, so there are certain things that you can see around, that you can walk around. But if you have a map, or iPhone, and you're checking everything, what you communicate is totally different, right? It's a different experience. So the same thing, the architecture of a piece, the form of a piece. Okay, it's yours, right? So you move in there. So the same thing with things that are fast, things that are slow, things that are singing, right? So everything has to be, inside of you. So the awareness when you practice is one of the most important things, right? So that you know what you're doing. Some days it's going to be better than others, right? But that's always the way to get wherever you need. So you have this, and this involved. They're all connected. Go and practice.